Power of eminent domain. Eminent domain is also called as condemnation. It is the power of local or state or federal government agencies to take away proper, private property for public uses, so long as the government pays just compensation. The government can exercise its power of eminent domain even if the owner does not wish to sell his or her own property. Eminent domain is the power to take the private properties for public uses upon payment of just compensation. Eminent domain is also private properties that are affected will be paid by government based on existing market value. Requisites of taking private property. One is necessity, the next is private property. Just compensation, cost of acquisition, current value of properties, actual and potential uses, and the last is size, shape, and location in the tax declaration.
I don't know if all of you are familiar with the series of Wildflower na kung saan yung mga Argente or yung family Argente is sila yung may kakayahan na bumili ng mga lots or lupa na mga building na kaya nilang bilhin sa kahit anong halaga or kahit magkanong halaga. And yung may mga magsasaka doon na may na mag may sarili silang lupa, and yung mga Argente is balak nilang bilhin yon dahil dahil may plano silang magpatayo ng EPC doon, or it's an establishment for a company or ayun sa business, for business. And doon pumapasok yung
So, taxpayers' money helps the country to strengthen its defense mechanism and security. Government and welfare scams. The government spend your tax money on various scams, including healthcare, social education, security, and other, which claim about 20 or 20% of the government expenditures.
Purpose and importance of taxation. 1. To raise revenues for public needs so that person can live in a civilized society. 2. The government increase taxes in order to stabilize prices and stimulate greater production. 3. An instrument of fiscal policy influences the direction and structure of money supply, investments, credits, production, interest rate, inflation, prices, and in general of a national economy.
Limitation of exercising this power. Government of limited powers may not be exercised to trample upon the rights granted under the Bill of Rights, subject to at all times to the limitations and requirements of the Constitution, and may in proper cases be annulled by the Court of Justice.
Concept of state. The word state comes from a form of a Latin word, stare, means to stand. Today, the word state precisely identifies a political community that occupies a definite territory and has an organized government with the power to enforce laws without approval from any higher authority.
People, humans being making up a group or assembly or linked by a common interest. Ang mga tao na kabilang sa isang lugar po ay relihiyon, bansa, lahi, wika, klase o kultura ay may kakayanin ring bumuo ng isang pamilya.
territory. What is territory? Territory is a geographical area belonging to or under the jurisdiction of a governmental authority. Or alam naman nating lahat na kung ano yung meaning ng territory or teritoryo in Tagalog. Ito ay isang island or bansa na pinamumunuan ng isang pinuno. Yon. So, common sense naman siguro sa atin kung ano na yung territory or teritoryo.
Government. We all know that we are all familiar in the word government. So, what is government nga ba? Government refers to the institution or agency or instrumentalities through which the state maintains social order, provides services, and enforces binding decisions. It is also the governing body of the nation, state, or community.
Sovereignty. Sovereignty is the power of the state to command and enforce obedience, its will from people. Also, it refers to supreme and absolute power within its territorial boundaries.
Internal sovereignty. Internal sovereignty is the power of the state to rule within its territory. Based on my own understanding, ito yung pinamumunuan yung sarili niyang bansa without the help of other countries.
External sovereignty. The power of freedom of the state to carry out activities without foreign domination or control. So ito yung pagkontrol ng bansa na walang tulong ng ibang bansa or pakikialam galing sa ibang bansa.
Nation. Nation is the social construction of a collective identity. It is an imagined political community that is imagined as both inherently limited and sovereign. It is also defined as a group of people who share the same history, geography, language, customs, and sometimes religion. The other definition of nation is a large body of people united by a common, decent history, culture, or language, inhabiting a particular country or territory.
Nation state. It is a state or country that has defined borders, territory. In the concept of nation state, each state has one nation. It is a system organization where people with a common identity live inside the country with a firm borders and single government. Example po, ang nation ay nangangahulugan at tumutukoy sa estado na sumasali sa etidad ng politika na kung saan ang mga mamamayan ay may pagkakapareho sa wika, kultura, reliyon at kasaysayan.
Concept of globalization. Globalization, also known as global industrialism, is a process of forging international political, economic, religious, and socio-cultural interconnection. The concept of sovereign nation-states is increasingly being challenged by globalization. I have three examples of positive globalization. First, globalization has made communication much easier and cheaper than before. Second, globalization also make it possible for people to demonstrate their sympathy and compassion for their victims of natural calamities and man-made tragedies all over the world regardless of religion, islands, language, color, and culture. Third, all these aspects promote globally certain common values such as equality, human rights, justice, democracy, and moral values.
I have here some positive effects of it. Number one is to access to new cultures, the spread of technology and innovation, to lower costs for products, higher standards of living across the globe, to access to new markets, and to access to new talent.
The last topic that I will discuss is negative effects of globalization. The first one is globalization represents a challenge to cultural and local. United Nations study shows that half of local languages in the world are expected to disappear. It has had a few adverse effects on developed countries. Some adverse consequences of globalization including terrorism, job insecurity, currency fluctuation, and price instability.
The widening gap between the North and the South at international level and between haves and have-nots at national levels is another serious aspect of globalization.